You're watching Pyro Media Network. Hello, Pyro Media family. Thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. We hope your experience with us is fruitful. While we are loading your experience, please do us a quick favor and hit that like button from whichever platform you're watching or listening on. And we do hope you consider hitting that subscribe or follow button so you can check out more of our amazing content. All right, let's start the show.
And hey again, welcome to It's Just Kim. Welcome to my show. I'm so excited about being here today. I'm excited that you're here today, and go ahead and hit like, share, make sure that you get folks on here because we have a very good show today. You know, I know a lot has been talked about single moms and mental health and things of that sort. And today we kind of have a combo of that conversation. So if this is something that relates to you or relates to somebody that you may know, go ahead and tell them to come on and join the show. Send them over to YouTube, Pyro Media Network, and they can join the show. We're live right now. Okay? So thanks again for being with me. I appreciate any time you stop by and join the show. You know, this is a show. It's just Kim. It's just things that are interesting to me, things that I think are interesting to women. And then, you know, sometimes we get a different perspective on some of the things that we're challenged with and just some of the things that we face as women, not just our seasoned women, but women of all ages. And so today I have a phenomenal guest. I have known this young lady for a very long time, probably almost all her life. And I've watched her grow and develop and become a great person, a great woman, a great mom, mother, all of that. And I'm going to let her tell you a few things about herself when she gets here. But I just want you to know that I love you. I appreciate you. And guess what? You are more than enough. So let's go ahead and get started with the show and bring in our guest today. My very special guest, her name is Arvinette Brooks, and she will join us right now. Hey, Arvinette.
Hey, how are you?
I am doing fantastic. I'm excited that you're here, excited that you are joining my show. And I am honored and grateful that you're here with me today. Yes.
Well,
So,
Auntie Kim, I just want to say thank you. It is really such a privilege and an honor to be here on your platform. I am one of your biggest fans. I am
oh,
always watching Just Kim or
wow.
Coffee with Kim. So, I mean, I'm just honored. So, thank you. I mean, hats off to you for even having me as a guest. I love you. I thank you. I appreciate you. And I thank God for you. I
Oh,
truly do because
oh, thank
this
you.
this is truly it's an honor and it's a dream come true for me.
Oh
So
my gosh.
thank you.
Girl, you're gonna mess me up in here today. I'm honored that you would even say that. I'm honored that you would even consider my platform something so wonderful that you feel so privileged to be here when really and truly it is a privilege for you to come. Um, I wanted to get started. We've been talking about mental health. I first had a conversation with my baby daughter, my youngest daughter, who's not a baby. She just turned 21, as a matter of fact. And she and I did a podcast, actually. We were on Coffee with Kim. We did two, part one, part two, talking about mental health. And we talked about mental health from her perspective and from my perspective as a parent. And so that show really did bless people. I got all kinds of comments, and people were sharing it all around, because it is truly something that we are all dealing with in some kind of way or another. Then after that, on It's Just Kim, we had three young ladies, one being my daughter, and two of other young ladies who are my nieces. And we talked about single parenting, and that was a phenomenal show too. And so there are some other things coming out of that show, as a matter of fact, talking about support groups and things like that for single moms. So this conversation, I really feel like, because I know that you had been talking with my husband, who is your Uncle William.
Yes.
And we had been talking, and he was saying that you were saying, hey, I really would like to be on her show. There are some things that I really feel like, I can share, and it could be a blessing to other people. So I feel like it's the right time, because, we kind of had a show about this and about that. And now here's almost like a sandwich combo of the two topics that we had talked about, one on the live show and one on my podcast. So today we're talking about single moms, mental health for mom. What happens when mom struggles? When I talked to my daughter earlier on the podcast, we talked about her struggle. And we talked about my struggle as a mom. But today we're going to talk to you about, being a single mom and struggling with your mental health. And you're such a jewel, because, when we talked earlier last week, you said, hey, there's no topic, no question that's taboo or off subject for me. I'm good with whatever you ask. But I wanted you to first to just kind of tell us a little bit about who you are, just whatever background you would like to share, and then we'll kind of go forward with the questions.
Okay, cool. So as you guys see, I'm Arvinette Brooks, and Aunt Kim is actually my aunt. She's married to my Uncle William. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California, born and raised. I moved to the South in '99. I joined the United States Army in 2007. I now reside here in Columbus, Georgia, which was formerly known as Fort Benning, but it is now Fort Moore. I did 9 years, 7 months, and 22
Wow.
days in the Army. I got medically retired, and I'm here now, and I'm just, enjoying life and
Good.
just embracing everything that, that comes my way. And, like you said, I say that there is nothing taboo for me, because I can honestly say I am healed.
Yeah.
Everything that has come my way, and I want to say that mental health for me is really important. I take it very seriously, because as we know, growing up, when you go through something or when you are experiencing something, what goes on in your house stays in your house,
Yes.
and
Yes.
we don't want to talk about that. Mental health is so taboo. It's,
Right.
It's a stigma.
It's a stigma. Yes.
And I don't want to just say in the Black families, I think it's all around, like all with me being in the military and
Okay.
being around I want to say a melting pot of people. We talked about things like this, and I've talked to different people from different ethnicities and backgrounds, and they said the same thing. Like,
Wow.
parents don't want them talking about, whatever
What's
they have
happening in the
going on.
home? Yeah.
They
I
just
get
want
that.
to, they want to keep a lid on it and be quiet and don't mention it because
Right.
people want to save face, or they want to, you know, make their family look as if it's something that it's really not. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying? So, I don't just cap it in one ethnicity, one background. I think it's for everybody. And I
okay.
will say, as women and as mothers,
Mm-hmm.
we take it on more because of the endurance that we have within self. Like, we were built strong.
Yes.
I mean, God made us that way for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So, we can kind of handle a little bit more than most
Mm-hmm.
because of our background and how we were built, how we were made, how he tailored us.
Yes.
So
Yeah. That's good. So you have two sons, right?
I do, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you have two sons. Tell them their ages.
So Kevin is 30 and Elijah is 17.
Okay. You look like you're barely 30 yourself. So you have a 30-year-old and a 17-year-old,
Yes,
correct?
ma'am.
Okay. And so that means you've been a single mom, or were you ever married?
So I have been a single mom pretty much my whole entire life. I was married, but I really don't count that as a marriage because I was only married for like 22 months. And we were
Okay.
both active duty Army, and he lived
Oh,
in Georgia at the time, and I lived in Texas at the time. And yeah, we were just doing something just to be doing something.
okay.
So
That's
I don't
honest.
really
That's
count
honest talk. Yeah.
that.
That's good honest talk. So you've been a single mom, we'll say for 30 years then.
Yes.
For 30 years you've been a single mom. And so I know that, when we first talked, you talked about, I went through some things, mentally. I went through some mental health challenges. So can you tell us about the first time you knew something was going on, something was just a little bit off, and you needed some help?
Yes. So the first time I experienced something was actually when I was a teenager, and
Okay.
I was still living in California. And I was just going through some things like from pillow to post, and I had a baby, you know, and things were just really, really bad because my parents were drug addicts. My parents are clean now. They got
Mhm.
27 years clean, but at the
Wow.
time they were drug addicts. So I was a teenage mom because I had my first child at 14.
Mhm.
Um, and I was just kind of lost out there. I had my grandparents and stuff like that, but I was rebellious, hard-headed, stuff like that. I thought I was grown.
Right.
So I was kind of out there. And I remember the first time I was feeling some kind of way, it wasn't right. And I thought I was doing the right thing by back in the days, they had these 1-800 hotlines to call. And I
Okay.
remember sitting in a house, I was in an apartment with these people that I lived with. And this was kind of like a party house. It was always people coming in and out. And I went in the bedroom and I called the hotline and I talked to the lady for like 45 minutes.
Wow.
And at the end of our call, we was wrapping it up. And she told me, she said, and I'll never forget it because it's like yesterday. She said, "What do you want me to do? I got
Mm.
my own problems. So what do you want me to do about yours?" After I
Oh,
spilled my whole entire whatever I was feeling to this lady on this hotline now, on this
wow.
1-800 suicide hotline. And I asked her, I said, "I just want you to give me 5 more minutes of your time. I just need 5 more minutes." And in those 5 minutes, I vividly remember it's a house full of people. They're partying, they're drinking. I went into the bathroom. I went into the cabinet and I took all the prescription drugs. I don't know whose they were. And I started taking them. And I was talking to the lady and I told her within of my time, I said, "I need you to call 911 and send them this to this address because I'm trying to kill myself now. Thank you
Wow.
for your time." Next thing I know, I was waking up on a gurney in the hospital. Now, mind you, I had my son, Kevin was about 2 years old. And there was
Oh,
people in the
okay.
house, and I sat in the living room with everybody, and nobody realized anything.
Wow.
So
So
that's
you were
when I
about
knew.
16 years
And
old at that time, right?
I
You were about
was taken
16
to the
at that
hospital. They
time?
pumped my stomach, and then they sent me to, ma'am,
I said you were about 16
hello?
years old at that time. Can you hear me?
About, yeah, I was like 17. Yes, ma'am.
17? Okay. So wow. So you're in a house with
Yes,
other
yes, ma'am.
people, a party house, so you said, and you trying to commit suicide by taking pills. And what happened when they took you? Uh-oh, we lost her. I'm sure she's going to come right back. But so she's telling us that here she is, 14 years old. She had a baby. Um, and she was living in a home with a lot of other people who were partying, having a, I guess what they considered a good time at that time. And she she tried to take her life. And so we're right in the middle of that story right now. So what we'll do is we'll go to a commercial right now, and then when oh, there she is. Never
Yeah,
mind.
I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. It just clicked
Yeah.
off. I do apologize.
No problem. So you were telling us you were about 17 years old at that time, and you were taking these pills, trying to take yourself out of here. The police came, or the ambulance came, took you to the hospital. You woke up on a gurney. They pumped your stomach, and what happened after that?
So, and then after that, it was a security guard, because at this point, I was, as they call it, a 5150. I was on psychological watch, and it was a security guard. And he was standing next to me. And I remember reaching over, grabbing his gun, and putting it to my head and pulling the trigger,
Whoa.
because I really didn't want to be here. I was done.
Right.
And nothing happened. So they sent me to, I don't remember the name of the hospital, but it was like a California mental institution. And I was I was on hold for 72 hours. And I was there, I was scared. But I also remember that that was the time that the Lord was really speaking to me.
Wow.
Um, and there were patients that were there way longer than I was there. I was just there hours, within the first 24 hours. So many people cling to me, and I didn't understand why. But I had a message in me from God that I didn't understand back then, but I understand it now.
Yeah.
And people that were living there were ready to check out because they heard my story, and they said it was something that I sent there that makes them want to live again. And when
Wow.
I realized that life was really not as bad as I thought it was,
Mm-hmm.
I started to, I said, okay, I'm going to live. I am
Wow.
going to live. And I wish that that was the happy ending to it, but so many things happened
I'm
between
sure.
that time. I had so many
Yeah.
adversities, and I
Yeah.
just kept going on and going on. So, not to bore anybody, but I've been in quite a few institutions, but I will say that the institutions I went in because I checked myself in, because I recognized
Mm.
that something was going on with me, and
Mm.
I was reaching out for help. Because
Wow.
a lot of times when you're dealing with depression, anxiety, PTSD, you
Yes.
know, you don't know who to turn to, who to run to, especially when you go through so many traumatic things.
Yeah.
And just to share a little bit, I know, because people are like, well, why did she go through all of this stuff?
Yeah.
Um, I was, I'm not going to call myself a victim. I am a survivor of
Yes.
rape and molestation and
Yes.
sexual assault. And it started
Mhm.
at an early age,
Wow.
you know. So it was a lot of things that, went into play with that. You're young, you're having a kid young, you've been abused young, you have parents that are on drugs, you know, and you don't know what to do, you don't know where to turn. And I turned to the
Absolutely.
streets.
Yes. Yes. And so that started when you were, thank you, Kwame. That is a trigger warning. That started when you were a young girl. So kind of fast forward just a bit to when you joined the military.
Okay, so I joined the military in 2007.
Hmm.
Um, I was 29 years old when I joined the
Wow.
military. Yes, I was older.
Really?
Um, and I joined because I had two kids. I had two
Mhm.
boys. I was raising two young Black men, and I wanted to give them something better. I refused for my children to live in poverty or to even go through anything that I went through. So
Yes.
that's why I joined the Army, to give them a better life. And I will say that my time in the United States Army was good. For the most part, it was great. I learned things, I've seen things, I've traveled. I've been across the waters a couple of times, you
Wow.
know. But I've also gone through some things while in the Army.
Okay.
So, yes, but I mean, for the most part, it was good. I mean, and I was able to explore and show my kids some things and teach them some things.
That's great. So tell me, what inspires you, Arvinette, to tell your story? Because I mean, there's so much that we could unpack, and we are going to come back and unpack the whole military thing. But there's so much that we could unpack dealing with you, like you said, the molestation and all those things that took place when you were a young girl. What prompts you to be so open and tell your story and share?
Um, I believe honestly, it was just God that was letting me know that I needed to. Because a
Mm,
lot of times when I
mhm.
would share, it was me venting and releasing because I didn't want to hold it in
Gotcha.
any longer.
Yeah.
Because holding it in was really keeping me captive and trapped, and I was a prisoner in my
Wow.
own jail.
Wow.
Um, so I just, I would just start talking to like just really random people, and people were just coming out of nowhere and was like, I'm ready to share my story too. And there was men and there was women and they were older and younger and they were like, hey, because of you, I can
Wow.
tell my story too. So I honestly have to say, Auntie Kim, it wasn't me, it was the God in me that
Yeah.
was reaching out to the people around me.
Yeah. And
Because even at
the
that
thing
time, I
about
didn't understand.
sharing, right. And the thing about sharing your story, that's with any story that anyone has. When we share our stories, when we put it out there in the atmosphere, then we disarm the stigmas, the shame, the guilt, all of that, because now we're taking control over the narrative. So no longer can the enemy say, oh, you're just a loser, oh, you're just this, you're just that. But now we're saying, I'm an overcomer. That's what you said. You said, oh, I'm not just a survivor, but I'm an overcomer of the things that I went through in my life. There are so many that checked out because they were going through those things, and they are hard and difficult things, don't get me wrong. But then there are young women like yourselves who are saying, look, I got these two kids. I'm going to try and make a better life for them. So I'm going to do the best thing that I know how to do. And that's what you did. Let me ask you this.
Mhm.
How did you manage your mental health while you were raising your kids?
Um, I've always been a person that was very optimistic. I've always, even from a young age, I've always turned a negative into a positive.
Wow.
Like I didn't know any other way. I just thought that that was the way of life. So, um, but I seeked counseling,
Good. Okay.
and then I started studying psychology so
Mm.
I can understand what I was going through because I wanted my kids to know that even though I might not be there always,
Mhm.
that I'm still okay and I'm able to take care of you and raise you the
Wow.
best to my knowledge. And then I also wanted them to understand that it's okay not to be okay.
All the time.
Yes, you
Yeah.
know. So that's what really did it for me is knowing that I was raising two young Black men, seeing the way society was, seeing the way the world is, and
Right.
knowing that even though I have these challenges that I go through, I still have to be strong for my two young Black men.
That's good. We're going to go to a commercial. When we come back, I have a couple other questions for you.
Yes, ma'am.
because self-care should be luxurious. Luxe Noir.
Hey pilots, did you know that you can now catch the electrifying sounds of Bullet in Flight radio anywhere you go? Yes, you heard it right. Tune in to the high-flying beats and soaring melodies by downloading the TuneIn app on your mobile device. Just search for Bullet in Flight radio and hit play. It's that easy. And if you have a smart device like Alexa or Google, just say, "Hey Google," or "Alexa, play Bullet in Flight radio on TuneIn." Experience the rush of adrenaline wherever you are. Listen to Bullet in Flight radio on TuneIn using your Alexa or Google devices. Soaring through the skies has never sounded this good. Don't miss out on the ultimate musical journey. Tune in now to Bullet in Flight radio on TuneIn and let the music take you on an unforgettable ride. Get ready to elevate your listening experience. Brought to you by Bullet in Flight radio.
Okay, so we are back. We're back to It's Just Kim, and we're here. If you're just checking in now, we're here with Arvinette Brooks, who is a very dear, special young woman to me. She's my niece. I've been knowing her just about all her life, and she's sharing a very sensitive, very honest and open, transparent story with us today about being a mom, you know, and having mental health challenges and raising her sons, you know, on her own, basically. And so we were just talking about how she was managing her mental health while she was raising her sons. And she was saying she did do therapy, you know, and she was always honest and transparent with her kids. And I think that is a very important thing when we are faced with those types of challenges. That we're honest. We're honest about what's going on with us, because I think when we're not honest about what's going on with us, then our kids begin to suffer because they don't know what's happening, you know, and maybe we're not reacting or doing the things that we should do as parents, as a mom, you know, and so the kids are trying to figure out what is going on. And then most times what kids do is they blame themselves. I don't know what that is, but children usually blame themselves when something is going on with a mom and a dad arguing, fighting, not getting along. Kids tend to feel like, well, if I was a better kid, if I wasn't bad, if I got better grades, then my parents wouldn't, you know, be mad. So you did that. You were transparent. You got in there and you were telling your kids, look, sometimes you're not okay, and it's okay not to be okay sometimes. Now, I know you were in therapy. Did your children receive therapy too?
Elijah did. Kevin did not. But Elijah did for a little bit. So I did take him, you know, to see.
Now Elijah's the youngest?
Yes, Elijah's my youngest.
Okay.
To talk about his feelings, because for Elijah, he was with my parents the first 9 years of his life because I was always gone, like deploying. And every year, it seemed like every year Uncle Sam moved me. I was never stable. So I've been to several different duty stations. I've been to Korea and I've been to Iraq, you know, and then I've been to several different states. So my parents were like, hey, we're going to keep him. At this time, they're clean. You know, they've been clean for a while now. So for years, honestly. And they were like, hey, we're going to keep him because we don't want you to do like we did, because I actually come from a military background. Wow. You know, my stepfather, who was married to my mom, that's been married to her for like 42 years, was in the Navy. So we were constantly moving too. So they said, hey, we want to give him a stable life. So that's what they did. So another reason why I put Elijah in counseling was because his first 9 years, he didn't know me. I mean, he knew that I was his mom, but I was not around. You know what I'm saying? So I needed him to understand that when I got him back, that it was going to be me and him, because for a while, I remember first getting him And he was like, okay, when am I going home? And I was like, sweetie, you are home. And he was like, oh no, I'm just visiting. And I was
Wow.
like, who are you visiting? And he was like, I'm visiting you, mommy. My grandma's coming to get me. And I was like, no, baby, you live with me now. And he was like, oh no, I can't do this. So he called my mom and was like, Grandma, when are you coming? I can't do this. I'm
Wow.
not
That
at
was a
home.
big transition for him.
Yeah. And my mom was
Wow.
like, no, you're at home with your mom. And he was like, no, I'm just visiting her. You know? So my parents came all the way from Alabama. I was living in Texas at the time, and they drove from Birmingham, Alabama to Killeen, Texas to make him feel comfortable.
Wow.
And he really didn't understand. So
Mhm.
then I get to Texas, we were there, and they were trying to deploy me again. And I was like, look, I just got off of deployment. I just got my kids back. I'm not deploying. So I didn't deploy. However, I got married.
Okay. I saw your face.
Yeah, I got married. And I mean, my ex-husband, he's a great person, but you know, like I said, we just did something just to be doing something.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got married, and then my son, I thought I was transferring to Georgia. And so my son went with my ex-husband, and then he stayed there with him. And I was like, this is too confusing for him because he just left my parents. He came to me. He was only with me for a little bit. Then I got married and he went to Georgia. And then he left Georgia and went back to Alabama because I got divorced, you
Wow.
know. And then I ended up in a whole nother place, in a whole nother state. So it was just too much. So when I got Elijah back at the age of 9, I was stable. I was about to retire out of the military. So I've had him ever since. And I was here in
Yeah.
Columbus. And I will say that it was tough
Sure.
because my son his love language is physical touch,
Mhm.
as to where mine is not.
Yeah. You have to
You know,
practice that, huh?
right. And I
Yeah.
had to understand that my baby was loving on me in his way by holding on to me and hugging me and being affectionate with me. And I was pushing him away. But I
Do
was
you
not.
feel Let me ask you this, because that's a great point you raised right here about his love language being physical touch. Do you feel like some of the traumas that you experienced kind of kept you at bay with him?
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Because I used to be a physical touch type person too until I
Mhm.
was violated.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So yeah. Um,
Yeah. And
but I had to
sometimes
learn.
our traumas, sometimes our traumas, they spill over into how we engage our kids, and that's not just someone's been in the military. However, it can be a lot of reasons. Some of the things we've experienced as children, some of the things we were experiencing in our relationships. And so here we are, like, this kid wants, you to tell them that they're great, wants you to, give them all these attaboys, and nobody did that for you, so you really don't know how to do it, so it's just a number of things that sometimes the experiences that we have in our lives as children carry over into our parenting. So let me ask you this, because I know we said that the younger son, got the counseling. Did any of some of what was going on with you, with your mental health and all of that, did it spill over into your relationship with your older son?
I believe that it did, because my older son took a different route, um, and he wanted to live the street life,
Mm-hmm.
and he started getting into trouble at a younger age. And
Okay.
when I say trouble, like, doing street things and going to prison.
Yeah.
My oldest son is actually in prison right now,
Okay.
and he gets out February 4th.
Wow.
And
This year?
yeah, he gets out
Oh,
February 4th this
great.
year.
Great.
Because I mean, he's been in and he got out, and then he just kept getting in trouble. And I think
Yeah.
it had a lot to do with, me being a younger mother, me living the street life, but trying to do things the best way I could, but knowing that I had all this
Absolutely.
trauma,
Yes.
because my trauma, so in the mental health world, I was diagnosed with PTSD. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people don't know there's different levels to PTSD. I have what they call complex PTSD, meaning I've had trauma after trauma after trauma that they all gathered together. So a lot of the traumas, because I had them so frequently and so close together, a lot of them I can't just pinpoint, and they were all like together in one bowl. So because I went through so many things, but still trying to shield my son at the time, Kevin, from it, it made it difficult. And I didn't always have the right answers, you know,
Right,
and
right.
so I kind of lived a different kind of life, and he kind of seen that, and he thought that
But
that
think
was
about it. You were a kid when you had your son. How could we expect you to have the right answers? There's no way that we could expect you to know exactly what to do, how to do it. You said that your parents, you know, they were dealing with their own addictions and issues that they were going through. So here you are, this youngster, trying to do the best that she could to raise her son, you know. And so, you know, I applaud you for even trying to be a mom, trying to keep your son together, trying to keep him with you, doing the best that you can by yourself. That's huge. And especially for what you said, a 14-year-old having a baby, that is a baby having a baby. And so you had to grow up fast. You had to learn certain things, and probably didn't really have a lot of folks there to teach you the way, you know, you should have been taught. And, you know, you did the best that you could. So that's one of the reasons that I really wanted to have you here, because I I love when, you know, we are real, and when we are transparent about some of the things that we've been through in our lives as women, and we're not always just telling the cute stories. We're not, you know, because the cute stories don't really help people.
right.
You know, because people aren't going through cute things all the time. You know, people are having life go on. And so you did an amazing thing by just remaining a mom. So, you know what? I, I'm not surprised that your son struggled in some ways, you know, because his mom was a kid too. You guys were really kind of growing up together, actually.
We were.
Yeah, you were growing up together. So I'm sure there are some remnants of issues and things that, you know, that your sons would experience by you having, you know, all these experiences as a single mom. Was there ever, well, you did tell us that there was a time where you really couldn't care for them, but what were some of the coping mechanisms that you used to deal with, you know, the stress of being that single mom by yourself?
My coping mechanisms were writing. I used to write
Oh,
poetry, and I used to
awesome.
just put all of my feelings down on paper.
Yeah.
Um, and just, you know, really learning to just accept it
Ah,
and to be okay with it. And I will tell you that that was not easy. I think, you know, the first time I realized that, I was like, hey, you went through this, you're living through this. Like, the things that you lived through, you probably should not have lived through, but the grace of God has
yeah.
kept you. So you got to figure it out on your own right now.
Mhm.
What you're going to do? Are you going to feel sorry for yourself? Are you going to constantly stay in this depressed mode and just give up, knowing that I mean, like, because you've been through some things. And Auntie Kim, when I tell you I've been through some things, like,
Yeah.
I've been through some things, you know, that
Yeah.
I'm just now at 45 realizing, oh my goodness, it was only because of the grace of God that
Only the
kept
grace.
me. You know,
Yeah.
it was his angels that were protecting me, because I've been through some things that nobody would have gotten out of, you know?
Right.
Um, but
And
my
he
coping
kept you here for such a time as this. And it's not about the It's Just Kim show, but so that you could be on a platform, and not just this platform. I see you on other platforms, you know, where you can share these things that happened, and sometimes, you know, in greater detail, because it's just an hour show.
Mhm.
But you can share in greater detail. And then there are women. I saw a comment that someone wrote in there that she could really identify with what you were talking about. Yeah, Miss Pamela Noah, she said, yes, I think it's a very important conversation that I can relate to. I've gone through a lot of what she did. It's hard for some people to understand when you feel there is nowhere to turn.
Yeah.
And so people are feeling like that, and they need to know that there are people like you, women like you, single moms like you out there who are saying, yes, I went through that, but guess what? I'm overcoming it, and forever overcoming it, but making yourself transparent so that other people can say, if she can do it, I can do it too. And that was always one of the reasons I always wanted to share my testimony, because I wanted people to see that, look, it's nothing special about me other than God put his hand on me and kept me and protected me. So if he can do it for me, he can definitely do it for you. So that's the amazing part right there. So let me ask you this. What kind of support, because I know it's, the way you were talking earlier and how your story, you were sharing it, you didn't have a lot of support systems in place. I work with foster kids, and one of the bigger things that we talk about with foster kids is support systems, and even with single moms, it's like you need a support system in your life. And so when we were doing that one show with the single moms, about the single moms, there were a lot of young women out there who were saying, I admire the three of you because they are a support system. And they were saying, I don't have that. I don't have a support system. I don't have friends and girlfriends and people that I can call to say I'm going crazy. These kids are driving me nuts, and all, or calling and saying, hey, this is going on, but we can hear the kids screaming in the back, but we can identify because we all got kids, And so did you have, or do you have a support system in place now today?
I can honestly say that I do.
Good.
I do have a support system now. And I honestly, I had one back then. I just didn't utilize it because my mentality was, I'm going to do this on my own. Nobody understands. Nobody's going to understand what I'm going through. They don't know what's going on in my mind and in my heart. And they're just going to judge me, or they're going to throw it up in my face, or they're going to use me, so my mentality back then was so wrong. But now it's just like, I have people I can call and be like, hey, I need a self-care day. I'm about to be out of here, And now with Elijah being older, because he's almost he's a senior, almost out of the house, he knows I can just go to my son and say, hey, I need a couple of days. I got to go and recharge. I need to go decompress. But what I wanted to share was what I started doing, and I started this years ago when I first got out of the military in 2016, because I really fell into a really deep, dark depression. I use Mondays. I called them my mandatory bed days. And I call because I have manic depression disorder. So I call it Manny D. And on Mondays, I would just decompress from the week that I had and mentally prepare for the week that I was about to go into. And what that did was, I didn't talk on the phone. All I did was I watched TV, and I sat in the bed and I just let myself rest. And I had a support system then too, because I would tell my parents and I would tell my friends, and I was like, hey, on Mondays, don't bother me. Let me decompress, because, life is going to keep lifing. Regardless if you are feeling happy, sad, ugly, indifferent, however you're feeling, life is going to keep lifing, and there's nothing you can do about it. And the one thing that I've learned in my life is that you can't control people, places, nor things. The only thing you can control is how you react to it or respond. And I had to learn to respond, because a lot of times I used to react, and sometimes my reactions were not the best. But when I learned how to respond, things started getting better. So, Yeah. And I love my support system now. I mean, it's kind of, I wish I had this support system back then, but
Yeah.
I love the support that I have now.
But you said it, you know, you really couldn't appreciate the type of support system that you have now. You were still maturing
I was.
to appreciate what you have now. I like that. What did you call it? Mental Health Mondays?
Yeah, so it's called mandatory bed days. So my Mondays
Mandatory
were
bed days.
mandatory bed days, and I didn't do anything until when I tell you I didn't do anything,
Wow.
like I didn't do nothing. Like don't bother me because sometimes you just really have to decompress, and still to this day I sometimes do it. Matter of fact, I had a mandatory. I used yesterday. I had a VA doctor's appointment yesterday, which really wasted my time. But I was just like, after that, I was like, let me just chill out. And that's what I did. And then I started meal prepping. So I do a lot of different things, but because I know better now. And when I feel like when you know better, you do better. But a lot of what it is for me is trusting God and allowing God to move me in the way that He wants me to go. And it wasn't always like that, you know. I'm human, and we want to do things our way. But I found it a lot easier to just, as I call it, I embrace the unknown and respect the shifting that it brings. And that is how I live my life.
Wow. I embrace the unknown
And respect the
and
shifting.
respect the shifting that it brings.
Yes.
I love that. Well, Arvinette, let me tell you, my love, you have blessed us today. You have blessed us today with your wisdom at such a young age, all your experience, everything that you went through. It was not for naught. It meant something, and it still means something, you know. And so I hope that there were some young women on here today, or some people that will share this with other young women that will be inspired and encouraged by what you had to share with us today. And please know that you will be back, because we are going to talk about that thing in the military. That's going to be a whole discussion. We already talked about it. So
Yes,
thank you. I appreciate you. And we'll see you until the next time. God bless you.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so honored. Thank you. I really appreciate you, and I love you.
Welcome. You're so welcome. So thank you for joining me today on It's Just Kim. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoyed Miss Arvinette Brooks, an amazing young woman who was so transparent and open with us today, sharing her story of breakthrough and being an overcomer, a single mom dealing with her mental health. Share this story. God bless you. So until the next time, you all take care and you all stay safe.
Thank you for watching Pyro Media Network. For more information, please visit pyromedianetwork.com.